Kia ora, welcome to Under the Checkered Flag, MotoGP edition. I'm your host Kate, and we're just going to jump right in.
It's Kate, Kelly, and PozzA here, and we have just watched some racing at the Japanese Grand Prix. And starting with some silly season news in the manager department, it has now been confirmed that Aki Ajo will be replacing Francesco Guidotti at the KTM factory racing team in MotoGP. Aki Ajo currently has his own teams in Moto3 and Moto2. But my question to you both is, do you think that this move, along with having Pedro Acosta in that factory team, will be what it takes for KTM to win the title or get some wins again?
With the presence that Aki Ajo's had in the paddock for just so many years, and with the talent that he's brought through, I don't think it'll be a bad choice personally. Obviously, Acosta was one that he sort of brought through the ranks as it is anyway. I just think it'll be interesting to see how the Moto 2 and Moto 3 team fare with him without him next year. Obviously, with Nicholas Ayo, I believe will sort of assume the role that Aki's left. I feel like it'll still work out. I feel like Nicholas is quite capable in what he needs to do. And as a KTM fan, hopefully KTM sort of get back to fighting at the front again.
Yeah, no, I don't think it's a bad move. I don't think they're going to get any very close to wins or anything with Aki stepping up, but it's definitely a step in the right direction. I don't think it will help Pedro Acosta enough. That he needs to help himself more than anything. I don't think a change in management will change that. But yeah, I think the Moto3 and Moto2 teams, I think they'll be all right under Aki's son. I think he's capable enough. They'll be grand. It's a good move for sure, and definitely a step in the right direction. Just it'll take a while.
It's definitely going to be interesting to watch the Moto2 and Moto3 teams, given they're going to have their own little rider shuffle up as well. On to Moto2 silly season news, and we have amazing news, I think, because I'm a huge Ayumu Sasaki fan, and he has now been confirmed to be staying in Moto2 next year, but he will be moving over to RW Racing. What do you guys think about Sasaki staying, and do you think this move into a new team is the right choice, or do you think if it was an option, he would have been better off staying put?
Ayumu going from Master Camp to RW just because RW have sort of historically had year-old or 2-year-old bikes, but they've shown with Barry Baltus and Zonta van Gorberg that they can bring in not so experienced riders and have them still show like flashes of potential even if the team's not the best. So yeah, hopefully it's a good move for both of them, and it'd be good to see Sasaki sort of more in the points next year.
I wouldn't say it's a better move. I think it's kind of like the same. I'm happy that he's staying in Moto2. I speak for everyone when I say that.
So, before we actually jump onto our overall thoughts of the race, I thought I'd ask a question for each class. And for Moto 3, I'm curious as to who your rider of the weekend is from each of you. We may all have the same rider of the weekend, but who would you pick if you could pick only one?
I'll just start off and go extremely boring. I think David Alonso is sort of the clear choice, obviously winning the race and the championship. Did one of his like sort of typical races where he just sits in the back of the lead group for a bit and then charges through. So I'm gonna go for David Alonso.
I'm going to be not basic with my rider of the weekend. Of course, I'd say David Alonso does deserve it after his performance and championship win, but I have actually gone with Adrian Fernandez and Colin Vire. Um, I think Colin Vire was expected of me, but Adrian Fernandez, he put up a good performance and he ended himself up on the podium. At the start of the season, you wouldn't really expect that of him. So yeah, I'm quite happy with both their performances. They stuck it up well. Vire had a bad start. Who would have guessed that? So his comeback from there was actually quite impressive.
And I'll bring us right back to basic because I have gone with David Alonso as well. I just think this weekend pretty much summed up his season, and it was quite thrilling to watch. Obviously, I would have much rather it went a little bit further in the season, ideally next weekend at Phillip Island, because it would be nice to see a champion crowned. But alas, what else stuck out to you about this race, if anything?
Really stuck out. I mean, it definitely had me freaking out because of Vire. Um, I mean, his bad start just kind of had me freaking out. I was like, "Are you messing? He's going to miss out on another podium because the way he starts." Um, Ortola ending up where he did was a bit of a shock. But like, why? How did he do that? Like, it kind of racks your brain. And you know, it's the simplest thing. A crash is the simplest thing, but like, how do you crash out then out of anywhere? I don't want to talk about it before I get really pissed off, but yeah, Vire, his bad start, it was just. Sometimes he does have good comebacks, and this week is one of those weekends, but most of the time he just stays where he ends up. And he needs to work on his starts. I don't know how he's going to do it, but he needs to work on them because it's a weekly thing, and it's not fun to watch. Please, Colin, please.
And as always, I'm going to go over a couple of the rookies. Top rookie this week was David Almanza in P12. Apart from that, there was only Joel Esteban, who was also in the points in P15. Jacob Ralston had another tough weekend, and none of the other rookies finished, with Angel Piqueras and Huazari and Linetta all crashing out, as well as Noah Detweiler on the first lap.
Plenty of crashes in Moto3. I think, yeah, the Ortola incident was one of the moments of the weekend just because it was so shocking and it felt sort of like the final nail in the coffin in regards to Alonso getting the championship. Given what happened in Moto 2, I thought there'd be a lot more crashes. So, a very brief description of what happened in Moto 2 was we were expecting a fully dry weekend, and then on the very first lap, we got rain and so many riders' hands going straight up because they were all out there on slicks. So we got a red flag. The restart, Ogura goes out there on slicks, and pretty much all other title, in fact, all other title contenders were out there on wet tires. There was so very few people, I think it was 6 riders that went out on slicks, and it did prove to be the right choice. In fact, he pulled off an absolute masterclass because he dropped down the grid and then just started charging through along with the rest of the riders on slicks. I am just curious as to your thoughts on, was it Ogura's choice to go with slick tires that surprised you most, or was there another rider that went with slicks that I guess you found more curious?
No, for me it was definitely Ogura going with six because he's the one fighting for the title, you know? Like, I swear, every time, every race that comes through, nobody wants that title. Nobody does. It's so weird. Um, yeah, Moto2 was definitely a race. It was something. Um, so yeah, it was just Agora because like originally, if you're looking at wet weather, you'd imagine everyone's going to come out on wet tires. That's what goes through my head at least. And it was just Agora that I'd seen that like really matters that I'd come out with slick tires, and I was like, oh God, no. But it turns out I was wrong. He was right. Um, yeah, it was just definitely him, I think.
Yeah, there were a few that I thought were quite notable. Obviously, Manuel Gonzalez, who ended up taking the win, also on slicks. But of the top 6 who were all on slick tires, the one that I'd like to bring most attention to was Javier Artigas in P6 on the Ford Racing chassis. Took Ford's first full-time rider points of the year. Was still a mile off of the rest of the dry tire runners, but got his first points in Moto 2, got his best result in Moto 2, got Ford's best result of the year, and quite possibly for a number of years. So I think that was quite big for the team.
I forgot to mention on mine, because I forgot that the top 5 were all slick runners. Zonta van de Korberg! Oh my gosh. He finally got himself some points. In the last couple of races, he's had a better qualifying format, and then it just didn't come to fruition in the race, and it finally happened. So, shout out to him. Finally, get some points in Phillip Island, please.
And I think we need to shout out Philip Salek too. He was having such a dominant weekend because he was topping all of the sessions. Then I can't remember if it was a technical issue or a crash that saw him qualify way down the grid when his pace was so up there. But given the fact he went with slick tyres and still managed to get a podium, I think given the weekend, he would definitely be very happy with that. Do you guys have any other thoughts on Moto2?
There was only one rookie in the points in Moto2, and that was Diogo Moreira in P8. Apart from that, Dennis Onchu finished in 17th, also was on the wrong tyres and just couldn't really fight. Senna Agius was down in 20th, with Jaume Masia 24th, and Mario Aggi crashed out on the 8th lap.
This week in MotoGP, it was a bit different to what we've seen in the last few weeks, where we've just sort of glossed over the sprints because the Grand Prix were so impressive. This week, I'm definitely going to say it was the complete opposite. The sprint was pretty decent and quite exciting, and the Grand Prix was an absolute snooze fest and one I don't think I'll watch back ever. I mean, there are so many better races, it was just completely boring, in my personal opinion, anyway. But one thing to note is that we now have our confirmed Rookie of the Year in the form of Pedro Acosta. He got his first pole position, and my question to you guys, given what we've seen this weekend, given the fact that Acosta crashed out of first place on Saturday and second place on Sunday, do you think he will take a win this year?
First off, him being rookie champion, whoa, there was so much more talent going on there. I cannot believe it. No way he was going to be rookie champion. I'm lying. Do I think he'll win? No. I have to be honest. I have to be just totally honest to myself and you guys. He's not winning this year. I think he will definitely within the next year and to finish the future, but this year it's not happening. It's just not. I feel like he's not. He doesn't have the experience on that kind of bike yet to confirm a win, and I think this weekend proved that. I don't think it was a pressure thing. I think he's had a lot of crashes this season. I think he's just inexperienced more than anything. Talking about that, the way people talk about him when he crashes is horrendous. I don't even want to go on social media and look at this weekend because the way people talk about him, it's horrendous. Like, get a life. Genuinely do. Going back on topic, no, not winning. I don't think, unfortunately. Although I'd love that.
Yeah, I feel like Acosta's crashes are more coming down to a sort of similar situation to Marc Marquez last year. He's just pushing a bit too much over the bike limit to try and win. Hopefully it's just an experience thing and he'll move past that and the KTM might get better. But yeah, it's kind of disappointing that he crashed out of both races, and it was probably his best chance to get that win with how strong the Ducatis are. But I still think there's a chance that he could get that win in the next couple of races. I feel like Sepang, he was quite strong out last year and the year before. But so are some of the other riders. But yeah, might be a bit difficult, but I think it's still possible, at least.
So our sprint race podium was Marc Marquez in P3, Enea Bastianini in P2, and Pecco Bagnaia in P1. For the Grand Prix, we had Marc Marquez in P3 again, Jorge Martin in P2, and Pecco Bagnaia in P1. I also do want to mention that Jorge Martin was P4 in the sprint, and I absolutely think he did some extremely good damage control, considering he had that Q2 crash that basically just ruined his weekend. for him to be able to turn that around into, I guess, the least amount of points he could possibly manage to lose to Pecco. We're going into Phillip Island with 10 points in it, and I'm just really excited for it all. Even though the race on Sunday was a snooze fest, I'm just happy with where the championship is. And just to note the current standings, Ayagura is on 228 points. Sergio Garcia is now 60 points back on 168 points. Alonso Lopez is on 163 points. This does mean that Sergio Garcia has to put in an amazing performance next week if he wants to stay in the title fight, because it will be the first match point for Ayagura in Phillip Island. So maybe I will get to see a champion crowned after all. And it was also really good to see Remy Gardner and Lorenzo Savadori back on track. Savadori was in for Miguel Oliveira, who has had surgery after his injury, so he's had a plate fitted into his wrist. Remy Gardner is replacing Cal Crutchlow, which I don't really know if it counts as a replacement or just Remy being a wild card. But happy to see him on the grid all the same, and just hoping that Cal's hand gets better sooner rather than later. Kelly, Poz, and I will be back this time next week to discuss or preview Phillip Island. I'm extra excited because I will be attending the racing, and there will be the vlog, I should say, that will be posted afterwards, as well as the regular podcast. Do let us know if there's anything you'd like to see from Phillip Island, and I'll do my best to capture it while not getting kicked out by Dorna. You have a wonderful week.